Yeah.
This feels weird.
Unless you want to
Yeah.
sit, well, unless you want to sit like Rebecca Hodge or Rebecca Douglas. Remember how she used to?
No, that's okay.
Okay, everyone, we'd like to get started so we can get our full hour in here. It's really my pleasure to introduce Dave and Kelly. Many of you know them, some of you do not. We're just very thankful. I want you to know that we're beginning our support for them as a church, Providence. And so it's exciting that they are here and they're going to be able to talk a little bit about what their plans are with MTW. So with that, I will turn it over to them. Let me open us in prayer. Our Father, what a privilege it is to call you that. Thank you so much for the way that you've blessed us in so many ways. Bless the Spirit. We're thankful that Dave and Kelly are able to join us here this morning. Thankful for the call that you placed on their hearts. Lord, we just ask that you would bless them, that they're seeking the way to make it to Uganda. We ask that you would open hearts and ears this morning. We ask that you would bless our time together here.
I'll be using the microphone for two reasons. One is a little bit better sound, but also we're recording it. So, Jim, is that okay level-wise? We're good? Okay. Okay. It is so good to see everybody. Wow, it is like old home week. It is really a blessing. Makes us sad that God led us to Richardson, but we know it is good. God is good all the time. And also, I can't start without acknowledging the events of the last 24 hours. As you know, it's sad and it's interesting. It made me think about a question that someone asked in the church in Richardson when we were starting to talk about Uganda. We had a Q&A session, and one person asked, "Is it safe there?" And really, it brings up the question of do we have an illusion of safety in the United States, right? They were questioning, is it safe? Because, boy, there's so much political turmoil, somebody could get killed. Well, someone almost did last night. One in our officials, there used to be a president and now is a presidential candidate. In the world, this is the way political turmoil is, and upheaval is real. Yes, some places it's more prevalent than others or more obvious, but there's not a place in this world that we're safe in human terms, right? But as believers, we can be safe anywhere because we're in the Lord's hands, and we know that His will and His providential will for our lives is good, and we trust Him. So we can do that no matter where we are in this world. So whether in Uganda or the United States of America, as Christians, our confidence and our hope is in Him. Our lives are in His hands, and so we can trust Him. So we're going to tell you a little bit about what God led us to, why and how this whole Uganda calling came up. Briefly, just very briefly, for those of you who maybe not know us, so when we went from here at Cape Coral to Richardson, Texas, Town North Presbyterian Church, it's a PCA church in a suburb of Dallas. Senior pastor there started in 2010, so we've been there 14 years now in Richardson, and it was really in the last 2 years that this has started. God's moved us in this direction to consider another call to Uganda. So the church in the yeah. Actually, that's right. Kelly, remind me a little bit of a history for us. So Kelly and I, we went to Covenant Seminary. I went in St. Louis in '99. Graduated in '99. We were church planters in Indiana from 1999 to 2006, and then we came here to Cape Coral to EPC or Providence. Forgive me if I say EPC because it's going to come up that way. To Providence, to Providence in 2006. We were here through 2010 with Oliver Clausen. I was associate pastor, and then in 2010 called to Richardson, Texas, senior pastor at Town North Presbyterian Church. So, yeah. So in the last couple of years, God's been leading us in another direction, and Town North is in a good place right now. Um, Town North is really seeing this as sending us. It's not really losing a pastor as much as we're sending the Rogers now, and we're at a new phase and stage, and they've been really encouraging. The church has supportive, a blessing. It was sad for all of us in one sense that we are going to miss the people there. Being there 14 years, we've gotten to know a lot of people in their lives. And we're going to miss them. I don't think we'll know how much we're going to miss them until the reality hits that we're on the ground and this is now home in Uganda for a while. But so that's where we're at. And so a couple years ago is really when it started. And I want to give you a little background on Uganda and the situation in Africa first. First, geography of where is Uganda. A lot of times we wonder where even this is in Africa. So take a look at this map because there will be prizes at the end. That's a hint. So take a look at where things are. So Uganda, Kampala is the capital. It's down the south. You'll see right on Lake Victoria. And it has a border, common border with Rwanda to the south and Burundi, Democratic Republic of Congo to the west, and then north is South Sudan. It's really those eastern countries that you'll see in a few minutes we'll talk about. The Presbytery, there's a new denomination in this whole area, Reformation Church in East Africa. I'll talk about that in a minute as well. But it really is working with pastors in this whole western section. So Uganda, South Sudan, Democratic Republic of Congo, Rwanda, and Burundi to the south. There are pastors from those countries that are involved in this new denomination and presbytery of Uganda. And I want to show you, forgive my technical lack of ability here, but there's a leader of MTW of Africa is a man named Victor Naka. And Victor is from Africa. He's an African, and he is over the whole country of Africa. And he did a video recently. Oops, sorry. Did a video recently describing the situation of the church in Africa. And I wanted to play just the first couple minutes of that video for you.
Africa has become a continent of contradictions when you look at the church. So on one hand, very when you look at priorities, those priorities they have provided some what the five priorities. One of them we want primary one. Why? Because that's when you feel right. Another important that it is obvious absence of the form perform other ceremonies. So Jim,
Sorry. MTW Africa has is they want to church plant and build up the church in Africa. So that's kind of where we come in here in a second. I'll tell you, and let me give you a little bit more background about the church in Africa. And Christians in Africa. This is an amazing statistic that I didn't realize until after looking into it more. According to the trajectory of things, the percentage of Christians in the world by 2060, 42% will be in sub-Saharan Africa. Almost half of the world's Christians will be in that area. So the question is, what kind of churches and theology are being built up there? Because the church is growing, but as Victor said, there's a lot of health, wealth, prosperity gospel, or no gospel at all. It's really just a sense of moralism, or even animism, strange witchcraft woven into Christianity, much like Haiti. If you were there, many of you have been to Haiti. You know it's similar, that it becomes this hybrid of something that's not really Christianity. So if this is true, we want to build up that church in Africa with strong churches and solid churches, biblical churches, because they're probably going to be sending missionaries here. I mean, look at the stats. By 2060, in North America, it'll be less than 10% of the Christians in the world will be here. It's shrinking in other parts of the world and growing in others. God has that happen. So then those missionaries from the strong or larger churches are going to be sending missionaries. So I'm seeing this partly, Kelly and I, is we're investing in our great-great-great-grandchildren, possibly, to have solid churches that are going to bring the gospel maybe back to America at a point where it's gone. We don't know God's ways in that, but it's definitely going to change. It's heading that direction. So we're seeing ourselves as filling a need here, that there's a need in the church in Africa, and we want to be able to help in any way we can. So how does that work? How do we fill that need? Well, it comes back to a letter that we saw after we started looking into this. We met with an MTW regional coordinator in Dallas that I knew since I've been there in 2010. We knew each other well, and we were talking, and it's a long story, but Kelly can fill in part of that, how we got to where we are. But he introduced us to the East Africa team in Uganda and said, there's a need here for pastors who are experienced in just being a pastor of a Presbyterian Reformed church. That these guys need mentors. And so he told us about it, and we met the team leader, and then after he looked at what we'd been doing, he said, you may be an answer to our prayer. And he told us about this letter, and I'll read you just the first part of the letter that they sent to MTW. This is the new Reformation Church in East Africa, Uganda Presbytery, that was just started 5 to 10 years ago, the most, sent a letter to MTW, and it said this: greetings in warm regards in Christ Jesus. This letter is an official request from the Reformation Church in East Africa, RCEA, and its Uganda Presbytery to pray with us and consider recruiting and sending godly, well-qualified, and well-suited missionary to work with us in our church planting efforts through the mentoring of indigenous church planters in Kampala, the whole of Uganda, and eventually other countries in East Africa. So they really want mentoring of these pastors, and what they need is just a very practical nuts and bolts of how do you do new member classes, how do you train leaders, elders, deacons for the church, how do you do the regular nuts and bolts of day-to-day ministry, and how do you work in a presbytery with other churches, how do you love your brothers and serve and work with them. So that's another thing that we've seen in Africa in our little experience there, is there's a much more the pastor is king mentality. And this is my little kingdom, my church, and I'm the head of the church and leader, and everybody looks to the pastor that way, and then also other pastors are more in competition than they are working together. So how does Presbyterian government that we see as a plurality and parity of elders, how does that function practically? and they want to see that played out and what that looks like. So, okay, I'm going too far afield here. I wanted to also tell what was happening as we're hearing about this Uganda. I'm hearing things, and some of you husbands, you know this. I'm hearing things getting excited, but I'm like, but Kelly and I are in this together. Is she on board with this? so I talked to Jerry and then said to Kelly, hey, can we talk to Jerry Gibson, who's the MTW hub coordinator? And she said, why?
Yeah. So I'm here to give some validity because I did not. We, a long time ago in seminary, kind of, missions, mission minded, wrestled through, pretty much came to the conclusion that's not how God has wired us. And so Dave is open to lots of things. And so over the years, he would say, oh, this would be great, And I do remember, you didn't say this part. So our denomination voted to not have people on the mission field doing things that ordained men were required to do here. So it was one of those inconsistencies with our denomination overseas. So the next year, the head of MTW stood up and said, that's great. Then pastors get on the field. So I do remember Dave coming home and going, I think, maybe when we retire. And I was like, oh, yeah, whatever. He did the same thing when he came back from Turkey. I'm like, all right, I don't know why we would do that. Like, I don't really, do you know me? Like, I don't speak any languages. And so we did come to this point where we just did feel like the best thing for our church in Texas was maybe to move on. And that was kind of hard, but we felt like the Lord, both of us, there was this point where it just felt like Dave was great. He was what they needed, but maybe this was time. So that's when we started just like, well, what next? What do we do? And we had no idea how great this would be in the sense of we aren't leaving them. They are sending us. But I cannot say we had that wisdom or anything at the time. So that's when Dave said, I think we should talk to Jerry. And I was like, I don't want to waste his time. And then I think we should talk to Jerry. And I said, if you promise to tell him every reason why I am not material to do this, if you just promise, because I just don't want to waste his time. So we did eventually meet, and I did. I let him know everything wrong with me, and all the reasons why I'd be terrible at this. And he patiently endured, and then he gave us a few options, actually. And I was like, okay, all right. But by the time he was finished, he said to me, well, both of us, he's like, all right, that was a lot for you to take in. I'm sure you're overwhelmed. And and I was like, Jerry, I've never been more encouraged. I just felt some confirmation, like maybe this is a thing. I don't really know why. Then they got super excited about a pastor wanting to go in the field, and I got nervous again because I thought, what do you think he's going to do? Like, some of you love him, and I love him too, but I'm thinking, what do you think he's going to do? Like, we just don't even know what this is going to look like. So, going was really the confirmation. So we went on a vision trip, and day one, I was like, okay, like, are we going to really know this is the place? And we've been through a lot. We have children not happy with us. And so I thought, are we going to go through all this and visit here and go, meh? Are we going to have to go to a different field? Like, I really was not at that moment like, I'm home. And ironically enough, we went to a presbytery meeting, which would not be the place I would think I would have an epiphany. But and they really were not, they were doing the nuts and bolts. It really wasn't even like it was this deep spiritual conversation. But I was, again, so invigorated because I'm seeing a work that only God can do. So there's a Reformed Bible College, there's a Reformed seminary, these are indigenous pastors. They are the ones to minister to the people of Uganda. We're not going to church plant. We're not going to, right? We are going to walk alongside of them. And it was at that point, like, I was like, oh, yeah, Dave would be great at that. And then afterwards, we got to talk with some, and I'm in awe of what I sense God doing. And I think part of it is our story of going, our church planning years, Reformed theology did not take off. We were not seeing people excited and wanting, so to be there and just hearing even what Victor articulated, one of the elders was articulating, it just felt like a lot of unity that I'm sure is going to be threatened at times. But so that's to validate this calling is to say I did not see. I was blind and I did not see, and now I just see. So we don't go knowing what this is all going to be, but definitely sense this being of the Lord.
Yeah, and that's the case. We also were at a place in life where we wanted to do ministry as a team together, and that was hard at times in the church now, where I'm with session, dealing with something, can't talk to Kelly about it, or we were often apart doing ministry. This is a way to do ministry together, because one of the things we're planning to do, I'll get into it in more detail, but we'll be, yeah, maybe I should walk through it. I'll do it as we go along. Here's kind of the impetus behind our thoughts process and praying over this of why do this, why leave Town North to go to this East Africa new denomination. And really a big part of it comes down to 2 Corinthians 8 and what Christ has done for us. You know the grace of our Lord Jesus Christ. Though he was rich, yet for your sake he became poor, so that you by his poverty might become rich. And I don't mean that others should be eased and you burdened, but that as a matter of fairness, your abundance at the present time should supply their need. And that was a big thing in thinking about calling and ministry. If I leave Town North, which I'm going to, and we're doing a pulpit committee right now, began meeting, there will be 50 guys and resumes that they'll get could fill that slot, do it. There's not they sent this letter in 2021, and they don't have guys going. They don't have anybody. So it was kind of a no-brainer for me. I'm 58 years old. I'm thinking it's the last leg of ministry in life. Lord Jesus, where do you want us to serve where there's need in your church? Genuine need, not that there isn't need in America. I'm not faulting that, but there's a lot of people here too. There's a lot of resources. There's a lot of things that here's a denomination and guys that are asking, and will you come? So it's kind of a no-brainer, because that's what Christ did, right? He didn't stay in his comfort zone, easy things, but he went to serve and give himself where there was need. And our purpose in our lives, and this will come up in a sermon today, 1 Corinthians 6, 19 and 20. When I was in seminary, this kind of became my life verse. You're not your own. You're bought at a price. Honor God with your body. So we're not our own. That's why we want to serve the Lord wherever he wants us for his church. We see ourselves as soldiers in his army. So he places a soldier here, and he says, Private, I want you there. Man your post. That gives you energy, like, you cannot believe, that, right? When you're in hard times, then you can stay in your post because you know God called you there, and that means a lot. So our purpose is to serve him, not being our own. So that's two drivers behind it. Let me tell you a little bit about what's going on in Uganda, and this is in Kampala, the capital city. That's where we'd be living, is in Kampala. And when we went there, Kelly and I went in last October, to see the presbytery. We went to a presbytery meeting of this new Uganda presbytery and saw a number of things that were happening around the area in Kampala. And one is an African Reformed Theological Seminary. ARTS is the acronym. That's the seminary campus, is the picture on the left there, you can see. And then some of the guys in the seminary. And the meeting of the presbytery was actually at the seminary campus. And it's a Reformed seminary, one of the few. I've heard differing accounts whether it's the only Reformed seminary in Africa or only one in sub-Saharan Africa. I'm not clear on that yet, still, if it's the only one. But let's put it this way, it's one of very few Reformed seminaries in Africa. And the man on the far right there you'll see is David Eby. And actually, David and I, we've met him and talked to him and his wife there, and then also on Zoom since then. And we have kind of parallel lives in one sense. He was a PCA pastor in California, and in his 50s, he left that church and went over to Kampala, and he's now in his early 80s, 81, and they're going to die there. I mean, he and his wife have bought a place. They sold their place in California and able to buy this compound of buildings in Kampala and stay there, and they're doing ministry there. And he's a real go-getter. It's amazing. 81, he's just plowing ahead with this seminary. It's exciting to see. So that seminary is very active, and they're engaged with the work that I'll be doing, because these pastors get trained theologically, but this is what they need, is a mentoring then after that. You'll see, actually, I want to show you another video, why they sent that letter. Oops, sorry. This is the team leader, Ben Church, telling about why they sent this letter to
Why did we
MTW.
send a letter asking for a church plant? When we first formed the Uganda Presbytery, we were elders from 3 congregations, all within the Kampala city area. But within a few months after we formed, we had 2 men from northern Uganda apply to come under care of our presbytery. They were already engaged in church planting in their cities, and we took them under care, but we had no pastors, teaching elders in our presbytery who were able to mentor them. So what we did was connected them with PCA pastors from the U.S.
Let me show you another brief video that Ben sent regarding what our role, my role particularly, helping these men, mentoring them would be.
We believe that David will be able to help our presbytery by focusing his time and energy on training and mentoring men who are under care and who have already begun to do pastoral ministry or church planting ministry. Currently, our teaching elders in our presbytery don't have the capacity to effectively mentor. So David will be able to in
little picture of what we're going to be doing. And really, this is where Kelly comes in as a key part as well. Our plan is, talking to Ben, that we would, Kelly and I both, would be going to stay in Kampala, but then go to these pastors who are in Burundi for a week or two, spend time with them, with feet on the ground, come back to Kampala, go to Rwanda. These pastors go back, South Sudan, Democratic Republic of Congo. And Kelly and I would both go. One of the things I've thought of and afterwards, pondering how this would look for both of us doing ministry, was to have her go and both help with the pastors' wives, mentor them, but also in the training of leaders and these pastors especially, um, talk about the children of the church, because it's such a big part of the church. It's amazing. When we went to the church in Kampala that Ben is working with in church planting, a majority of those there were children. It was amazing. I mean, they had like 50 children there. And that's a large part of the church, because if you've been to Africa or even Haiti, but Africa especially, you'll know that the average age of the population is very low. You don't see a lot of elderly people. The age, uh, life expectancy is very low. I mean, it's just the reality. So there are a lot of average age is like 20 something. So there's a lot of kids. I mean, it's amazing. So that's a big part of the church. So how do we train up the children? And Kelly's been doing at Town North in Richardson a Covenant Clubhouse every Sunday night, much like Covenant Kids. But they focus on the catechism with the kids and a program that they can do it. And I'd love to have Kelly work with these pastors to help them get that going in their own church with the kids, especially good biblical theology in the kids at a young age. And then also, I was reading a book then about the same time by Odin, and he talked about the shaping of how Africa shaped the Christian mind. And he makes a case that many people in Africa now, Africans, are pushing against Christianity because they believe it was brought in with colonialism. That these white Westerners just brought Christianity in the 19th century with the missionaries. And he makes a case that that's not true. Actually, the roots of Christianity go back farther in Africa than it does in the West. The early church councils and the early church fathers were all many North Africans. Augustine is from North Africa. They were Athanasius. They were North Africans, and that's where a lot of the councils were. So Christianity was here in North Africa and even went down the Nile to East Africa, sub-Saharan Africa, far before the 19th century when the missionaries came. And so as I was thinking about that, Kelly and I have talked about it, it would be great to have some way to get church history into the children as well, to see that this is, don't let people fool you to say, oh, the Westerners brought it over. That's not true. You were believers. Your ancestors are believers before us. And be able to teach, and that's what Odin's point is in the book. He said he thinks young Africans need to understand the history of Christianity and get that drilled into their head. This is not something being imposed on you. You have roots in this that go way back to the first, second, third century. So there's African Reformed Theological Seminary in Kampala, and there's also African Bible University. Some of you may have heard of O. Palmer Robertson. He wrote a book, Christ of the Covenants, that we did in seminary, read that book long ago. He was the principal and director for ABU. He lived in Kampala from 2004 to 2019. He just retired a few years ago now, but he's a well-known Reformed scholar and teacher. He taught at Covenant Seminary before I was there, but African Bible University is there. And one of the things that I would probably be doing as well, we toured the campus, talked to the director, and we had dinner with the New Testament head of the New Testament department. It's an undergrad, it's a university. Is that I would probably teach a Bible class there, because that's what Ben does as well. The church planning or the team leader, Ben, teaches one class a semester there as well, and so that's a good way to get engaged with younger undergrad African students. And it'd be I see it as a good pipeline into ministry, because we're finding that I don't know what your presbytery is like, but in our presbytery in North Texas, we've seen a downturn in the last even 5 years, I think, of number of men coming into the ministry. And it's concerning to us. We used to have, we're a big presbytery. We've got over 50 churches and over 100 teaching elders in our presbytery. And we always have like 5 to 7 guys every presbytery meeting being examined for either licensure, ordination, or something coming under care. Now it's just dwindled down. There's some presbytery meetings we have 1. And so it's been a concern of ours. So we're trying to go back to feed the pipeline earlier and younger. How do we mentor younger men that are even considering the ministry in high school? And then I'm thinking the same thing would be good here in the African Bible University to say, how do we mentor young men that are considering the ministry, even at college age in their undergrad? These are some of the men that are in that presbytery right now, being trained in the Uganda Presbytery. We met some of these men when we were there at the presbytery meeting. So Ben Church is on the second to the right there. He's the one that you saw in the video. He is the team leader for MTW in Uganda. And then these are some of the other men. This is actually from when we were there. Men are in the presbytery. Whoops, sorry. And then left, you can see we met with some of these elders and pastors after the presbytery meeting to hang out. And the picture on the right is the actual presbytery meeting that Kelly and I attended, where they were doing the work of the church. I don't know if, Kelly, you want to talk about the man who's sitting across from you? Tell that story.
So one of the things that struck me, I mean, I was just fascinated. The one man, I don't know how to direct, but the man in the plaid right here. So he just casually tells us his story, and in my way, I'm stopping him, going, "What? Wait, what?" So he just starts telling how, and I'm piecing together. You know, at the time, I'm still trying to process, and kind of wonder if he was maybe in a refugee camp or something like that, because he just talked about going back to his tent. So I don't know. I don't know this for sure, but he heard on the radio the gospel. Yeah, no believers in his family. Heard on the radio some message that caused him to go back to his tent, get on his knees, and pray and ask Jesus to come into his life, or however he was presented with it. From that point, he wanted to find out who gave that message on the radio. So he hunted down who was this who spoke. He got to that church, he started attending it, and then he through what he was saying, he got to this point where he was like, wait a minute, I know what he's going to say before he said it. And first I was like, what is that? Like, are you prophecy? I really wasn't sure what he was trying to say. But afterwards, we realized that this pastor talked about himself all the time. And he just was like, I know exactly what he's going to talk about. And it wasn't the Bible. And so he knew he needed to leave the church. So I was like, okay, wait. So you just hear a message on the radio, and then you pray, and then you go, you find, where you got these words of life, and then you discern that is not theologically sound. And I thought, that is of God. I think I would be in a cult had I been on the certain path, and so I was just in awe that this God was doing this work and protecting him, and there's no other explanation for that. So they were just delightful and really want for Africa to be transformed by the gospel.
Yeah, it's an amazing story. This guy, what God led him through to get to, the Holy Spirit's at work. He's going to work, right? He's going to get him to the Good Shepherd. Isn't that the great thing? I love that. He's going to get you to the Good Shepherd, give you ears to hear, and then the Good Shepherd's going to keep you and keep feeding you, nurturing you, leading you to water, safe pasture. And that man's a picture of it. These two men the man across from me, they're the end one. He teaches some at the African Bible, or actually ABU, African Bible University. And his understanding of a Christian worldview is phenomenal. We talked to him and just blown away. The guy's very sharp. I mean, it's incredible. So this is the team. This is our team. We went on a vision trip. So the man on the far left, standing in the back, is Jerry Gibson. He's the MTW coordinator for the region around Dallas. And then people from our team. And then in front are the MTW people who are at, so Ben and Kim, that's his wife Kim, they're the team leaders. And then the two are that work at the MTW office there. That's their building that they have for their headquarters. I mean, headquarters is a big word because it's not that big of a team. It may sound like it's a lot bigger than it is. But there's the team leader, Ben and Kim Church. They've been there over 10 years, so that's what's going to be helpful for us being newbies. They know the lay of the land. They know Kampala very well. They know how to navigate things there. So they're going to help us walk through what it looks like to live there. And they have children, so they've navigated a lot with that. And so he's wearing a lot of hats. He's the pastor of Christ Our Refuge Church. They planted that in Kampala, and he's mentoring these interns at the church to one day take it over as the plan. And he's also the moderator of the presbytery. He's also the head of the MTW team. He's just wearing a lot of hats. And what's that? Yeah, church planning committee of the presbytery. Yeah. So this is Christ Our Refuge Church. That's a church we'd be going to. We went there to worship when we were there in October. That would be our home church. And they just got a new facility, actually, recently. But, well, they're building. That's right. They got the land. They're building it now. And that's a picture of the children. So that was a Sunday morning. That's how many kids are there. They're just waiting to get something to drink after worship. So that's just a picture of a few of the kids. It's amazing. They're at the church, and then baptizing some of the children, Ben, and then this is after the worship. We were talking to some of the guys, Jerry and I, and there's Kelly with some of the kids. She was laughing because the one boy in a jean shirt really looks like he wants to be there, doesn't he? Yeah. Yeah, Mozingo. So, okay. Then at the this I thought was kind of interesting. That's a new member class. Just kind of meet out under a tree. And I noticed too, all the non-Africans mainly are sitting under the big jackfruit. You know, so don't you feel like one of those is going to fall on their head at some point? I don't think yeah, they're huge. Yeah, those are like this, and they're heavy. So I'm thinking, I don't know if I'd want to sit under theirs, but they're doing a new members class afterwards, after the worship service, and Ben's leading it there. And also when we went over, we were able to go, actually the team went to Uganda and then also to Rwanda. And Kelly's parents have been in a ministry in Rwanda for over 20 years. They were when we were here even, so I don't know if some of you may have heard that, but no, her parents are in the States, so we're from Wisconsin, and they go over once to twice a year at least to Uganda or to Rwanda to do ministry. And that man between Kelly and I is Ben, and he is a really good friend of theirs who is feet on the ground ministry in Rwanda with them. So we got to see Ben when we were in Rwanda, and Kelly just last week, literally she just returned Monday from Rwanda going to a wedding of his son. So Kelly was at a Rwandan wedding last week. Yeah.
So Rwanda, the history is the genocide. My parents basically adopted him. Ben's parents were killed in the genocide, and he adopted. So for a long time, their picture was on my mom and dad's refrigerator, and she really wanted us to like feel connected and part of the. And I was like, "Your picture on my parents' refrigerator." Like I just didn't have a connection. He calls my mom. His kids call my mom Grams. He says sister to me when he sees me. But when their one daughter got to be college age, my mom reached out to me because my kids were college age and she was trying to figure out, was there anything we could do for her? Well, she came and lived with us for 2 years, went to community college. So like we are really family now. Like my mom wanted it, I didn't see it happening, and yeah. So Dave, he met us somewhere, and Dave, this spontaneous, like it's raining and Dave, they're going out and they're embracing each other. I'm like, wow, I didn't know how much of a connection we had. But they, funny enough, do make us feel a little bit more home. Yeah. So.
Yeah, we've known him for a lot of years. Actually, in 2004, I went over to Rwanda to do a pastor training when I was at the church plant, and so got to meet Ben there in 2004. Little did I know, 20 years later we'd be back, more contact. So the picture on the right then is in Uganda. We went visiting houses after worship, Kelly and I, on that Sunday. Nope, we're doing fine. 10:15, right? 10:15. Here's our timeline. So right now we're in a pastoral transition at Town North. We formed a pulpit committee. They are starting to do their work. I have said to the church, I'll be there as long as you find a pastor, or July 2025, whichever comes first. So we're planning to stay there in our normal capacity right now, doing all ministry normally, and then meeting with churches and our Presbyterian people to gather partners with us in the ministry. And then July 2025 is the target date for getting this pre-field training. So there's a number of hoops you jump through with MTW. After you do a readiness evaluation assessment thing that we did back in November, then you do orientation, and we're doing that now. We're meeting with a cohort on Zoom every 2 weeks with other missionaries from around different places, different teams. We meet with them for 10 months, and then in the next piece is pre-field training, but they only offer that in January, July, twice a year. So really, we're aiming for that July 2025 target date for pre-field training. It's the last piece before you go onto the field. They do some intense cross-cultural training for 3 weeks. So our aim is to hit that one in July 2025. If the Lord provides all that's needed, we have to have 100% raised by then, and it's a one-time. There's a one-time amount that MTW. They give you a whole list. We went through an orientation in Atlanta end of February, and they give you a list of here's what you're going to need for this field, and here when a lump sum for this time to get the transition in order, and then a monthly support. So they ask you get 100% of that raised by the time you get to July 2025 is our target. So that's what we're working with. Prayer needs right now, I would say, remember the P's. Prepare, ask God to prepare us for the ministry. Ask God to give His power for the ministry, and ask God to provide ministry partners. That's really where we're at right now in this phase. And I've seen a second one. Well, first and second one are really important. I've noticed even in the last year. So there's a man. It's a long story, but I got it connected with a man from Senegal who goes to our church, and I've been meeting with him weekly for the last year. We go through the Westminster Confession, and he's really become a close friend. And we talk a lot about Africa because I can learn a lot from this man. He's born and raised in Senegal. He's now here in the States working at TI, interestingly enough. And he's taught me a lot about spiritual warfare, and in Africa, spiritual warfare, that I don't think I've fully factored in. He said, you're going to be at the tip of the spear, and there's a lot of strange spiritual things that Westerners are too logical and go like, we know why that is. We know why that is. He's like, you'll be surprised. But he's been encouraging, but also saying, like, this is a reality, spiritual warfare. And we've felt that. I mean, I felt that in the last few months, even going this direction. A spiritual attack in strange ways, whether it's in a family or various others. So we need God to prepare us, because there's a part of this whole thing, a big part, that we don't know what we're getting into. It's kind of like having children, right? You can prepare, you can go to children's classes, parenting classes, all you want, but at some point you're going to have the child, and you just have to start. You're going to dive in, right? So I feel a little bit like that with this. It's like, I've been to Haiti, been to West Africa, been to East Africa, been to other fields, but Lebanon, Turkey. But what's it going to be like on day 21 when it's like, there's no return ticket? This is home. This is like, I haven't experienced that. So we're going to have to experience that, and I can only prepare as so much, but I ask God, and if you would help us in prayer to ask God, prepare us in ways that we don't even know we need to be prepared. There's ways that I know we're just going to have to go through, but that's where it's so important to know that God is our Father, right? To know that He's got you in His hands, and if you're in His hands, you're okay. You may go through hard things, but if He's got you, it's like Moses. Do you want to go up? Lord, we don't want to go into the promised land if you're not going with us. And that's the way we feel as believers, right? So, to keep in contact, one thing I forgot to put on here that we're going to have a sign-up sheet too, and I forgot. But on the top, notice Kelly's, and we can give this to you if you need it later, if you don't write it down now. Kelly's email address is there. If you'd like to be in our newsletter, to get a regular newsletter by email, send Kelly an email and she can put you on that list. Oh, yeah. Yeah, good point. So we both also have MTW accounts. So it's just our name with a dot between. So david.rogers.mtw.org or kelly.rogers.mtw.org. Those will work as well. Okay, time for prizes. And here are the door prizes. You get some African peanuts or cashews. These are genuinely African. Yeah, to carry on a plane, I had to be non-liquid. So, okay. First person to raise their hand to be able to name those 4 countries gets. Anybody want to take a shot? Okay, Karen, you want to go for it? Come on, Karen. Very good. Dem. Good. Oh, good job. You take that back, Karen. Wow, good job. So South Sudan, Uganda shares a common border with Rwanda on the southwest, and then Democratic Republic of Congo. If you look at a map, Democratic Republic of Congo is huge. And it's really one of the most unstable countries in the area. But there are 2 pastors from Democratic Republic of Congo who want to be part of the Uganda Presbytery. So that's exciting. Yes, well, that's the plan for these 2 pastors, but it's very dangerous. So that would have to be in the right context and know what's going on. So, but yeah, there are 2 pastors that we met that are in the Democratic Republic of Congo. And actually, yeah, there's an enormous refugee camp there. Actually, Kelly's, and yeah, in a refugee camp. Imagine that. For years, they've been in there. Kelly's mom has been to Congo, into Goma, because she goes to Rwanda all the time. Sometimes they go over. A lot of the refugees from Rwanda fled. It was difficult. Yeah, yeah. So, but the short answer is probably, I guess. We're gonna see how that goes. Okay, second prize. If you can answer this question, what is the name of the denomination? Do you remember that? So Uganda Presbytery and the denomination. Let me give you the letters. It starts with an R. Rich? Yes. Rich Mandietta. All right. The last one. What did the Uganda Presbytery request? What did they want in the letter? Yes, mentors, church planners. You get cashews. Yes, Bob. Yeah. Well, exactly. That's right. That's right. That's right. They were asking for somebody, and then it's where it's like, wow, God answered the prayer. And that's where they're seeing it. Ben said that. The regional coordinator said that. Like, it's a good picture of how God answers prayer. Like, I didn't know that was happening. Like, I'm at General Assembly. Think about that. Thinking these things in my mind down the road. At the same time, they're writing a letter. We don't know how this is going to come together, and God did that. It's pretty amazing. Okay, some memories of Haiti and EPC. Do you realize Bob and Pam just said that? I've not been to Haiti without a Johns with me. As I look back at the pictures, I've never been to Haiti. Well, while I was in Florida, I was never in Haiti without some John's family member being with me. As I looked at the pictures, because here, look, Jenny and Christy are there. Yeah. So there's Jenny, Christine, and actually Rhoda. Rhoda is consistent too. That's so that was I don't know what that year that was, but that's one year. Next year, there's Rich, yeah, and Pam, our daughters, and remember Greg and Barb Van Scoik. Most of you know them, Greg and Barb. And then the next year, there you go, Rich, Pam, Rhoda. Yeah, really? Yeah. I don't know, but yeah. So we went to Haiti. I have fond memories of that. It's a great. Greg and Barb Van Scoik. We yes. So that's Kelly's mom, right next to Pam. Those are our two daughters, two of our daughters, Haley and Tiana, and they were at the other year too. There's Haley and Tiana right there. So Haley's on the far right. Yep. No, that's twice. That's a different. Oops. Oh, maybe you're right. Oh, it was. You're right. So maybe I have been there without a John's. There's another year that I went, at least two. Okay. Yeah, that's true. Okay, 3 minutes Q&A. Sorry, I wanted to leave more time for that. Nilba. Oh boy, I don't have a recent picture. I was thinking about that. I should have put. I don't have a recent picture of all of us together in a. So we have five. The oldest one, Tiana, is 31, and she's in Pensacola. She's married, and has one child, and has one child due this week, like any day. Actually, we could get a call today, and she may have the baby. But if she doesn't have it soon, she's going to be induced on Wednesday. So we'll have another grandchild on Wednesday or Thursday, depending on how that goes. So yeah, so Tiana and Taylor are married in Pensacola. Second oldest is Haley. She's the one on the blue shirt, second to the right. She is married to Andy, and they live in Waco, so 2 hours south of Dallas. And they have a child, so it's another grandchild, Wes. And she's a graphic designer. Yeah, Tiana is a piano. Well, she's home with the child now, but she was a piano teacher. She got a master's degree in piano. And then Haley got a degree in graphic design. She has her own graphic design company. And then Celine is in Dallas. She's 20, so 98, 26, 26. She's in Dallas. She's single. She works for a company in Washington, D.C., 100% remote. She lives in Dallas. Josiah, oh yeah, that's right. So Celine became a comedian. She does stand up. She really does. Yeah. Yeah, you might, if you ever go to a stand up comedy club in Dallas and you're like, that looks like Celine, it probably is. So, yeah, Celine. And then Josiah, he's kind of, he lives in South Dallas. Yeah, so Josiah is 20, he was born in 99, so 25. And he lives in Dallas. And then youngest is Lily, and she's going to be 20 in August. Can you believe that? When we moved here, Lily was not in kindergarten yet. She was 2006. She was 2. Yeah. We moved here. Lily was 2. Now she's 20 years old, going to Texas A&M. She's planning to graduate December 2025. Biology and conservation, college, conservation. Biology and conservation ecology, something like that. You know, Gary, you probably know. She's a very much outdoorsy person. She loves birds right now and everything outdoors. So, yeah. Any other? Oh yeah, no, I don't know if you do know. So our son Josiah is from Haiti. He was born in Haiti. We adopted him when he was 2 years old. Well, we got him when he was 2. Kelly met him on a mission trip there when he was a year and a half. Yeah, so Josiah's from Haiti. So we have ties to Haiti that way. You can pray for Haiti. That's in a rough place right now. The kids? Oh, Josiah. Right now, that's been a sore spot of difficulty. That's something you can pray for. For 2 of our children are like, why now? And it's kind of a reverse, I feel like, in some regards. There's a lot of layers to it, but I would say in a short thing, we've told MTW about all this that's been one of the ways I think Satan's attacked in our family, is the two middle especially are not happy with it. And part of it came to why now, because most times the young couples are going with the grandchild overseas and the grandparents are like, why now? We're kind of flipped that way. We're empty nesters, and there's an element of it, I think, that children are saying, why now? Grandparents, we wanted you to be closer. So it's complicated, but you can pray for that. It's brought some family strains, but that is one of the things we know, right, as believers. There's a cost to everything we do. And there's a real cost. It's true. We will be farther away from our kids. Josiah, yeah. Josiah is not found his way yet. You can pray for him as well. He's kind of wandering off the rails right now. Pray for him. It's been difficult for us as parents. Okay, any other last question? Let me pray for us. Father, we thank you for this time together. I do thank you for Providence and just the blessing they have been to our family over the years. And even now, it's good, Father, to have this connection so that we can be partners together in this ministry that you're doing. God, you have been doing this work to raise up these men in Africa. 30 men, over 30 men that want to move into being pastors in a Reformed Presbyterian church. That is just not normal. But you are doing it, God, and so we ask, Providence and Kelly and I, we all ask that you would raise up solid churches and bring people into your kingdom through those churches, we pray, and prosper them and grow them in your grace, in true prosperity, not prosperity of this world, but of your kingdom, that they would be rich toward you, O God. Even if they were poor in this world, Lord, that they know their riches are with you in this kingdom that will never perish, spoil, or fade. So, Father, please lead us in this work, we ask, that you would be glorified in our short time in this world. In Jesus' name, amen. Thank you, everybody.